ways not to honor that, don't you think?
I've been a fan of both of yours for a very long time. I really appreciate you giving me so much time. And I have a lot of questions about Jenny Penn, but I want to start with some other things first. I am wearing my Stanley Kubrick t-shirt for both of you. Do you have a favorite Stanley Kubrick film?
Dr. Strangelove for me.
Yeah, well, that's a list that's very hard to pare down to one. Lolita, I thought, was an extraordinary film.
He is amazing. Are you a particular fan of Kubrick's, Stephen?
I am a huge fan of Kubrick, but the proper answer for best film is there is none, because they're all amazing.
Yeah, they're all amazing.
That's correct.
Like no other filmmaker, you remember the images of a Kubrick film as if you had seen it just yesterday. I don't know what his magic is, but it's so fresh and immediate, the way he used a camera. It's amazing. I'm not surprised you're a big fan.
Yeah, there's only a few filmmakers that have that you can tell when that are just that kind of auteur, you know. Anyway, I think it's because he didn't overdo it. He was very particular with what he directed.
Best shot had to be the cut to the wide shot of the ship on its way to Jupiter, and Keir Delay knocking on the door and saying, "Open the door, Hal." And he's this big, and the ship is this big.
Amazing.
That was mind blowing.
John, individual question for you. Do you remember? I like to research people when I'm going to talk to them, and I found it fascinating that you voiced Yoda on the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, the original radio drama. Do you remember voicing Yoda?
Oh, yes, every detail. I'll tell you the story as quickly as I can. I was acting in a play on Broadway directed by John Madden, who very soon became a major film director who directed, among other people, Geoffrey Rush and Shakespeare in Love. He was directing me in Beyond Therapy on Broadway, but in those days, he was a very successful radio director, and they'd hired him to do the Empire Strikes Back radio production. And he had Billy D. Williams and Anthony Daniels and Mark Hamill, but Frank Oz had chosen not to play Yoda because he was very doctrinaire about only using his voice when he used a puppet, not unlike Dave Crealy, I might add. And so John was pissing and moaning over lunch one day during a rehearsal break that he couldn't find a Yoda. And I said, "Oh, impatient is he?" And I got the role like that.
Over lunch.
I'd been watching Sesame Street with my kids for years with Grover, as Frank Oz running up to the camera. "Now I am getting closer. Now I am." That's how I got the role of Yoda in the radio production. Yeah, and I couldn't thank you more for bringing that up.
Please don't go into any Buckaroo Banzai impressions, okay?
No, don't get me started. Let me talk too much. I've been talking all day.
I was just going to say, I appreciate you indulging me and demonstrating the voice. For both of you, everyone starts somewhere. I know you both, obviously, at a young age, must have realized, I want to be an actor. When did you both realize or think that you could pay your rent by just being an actor?
I started acting in plays. In grade school, I did comedy sketches. We had a teacher in grade 5 who would say, "Okay, tomorrow we're going to have the news, the weather, and a commercial. I want you to do the news for 3 minutes. I want you to do the weather for 3 minutes. And Geoffrey, you're going to do the commercial." And I would do a parody of whatever was on Heinz Means Beans, or you know what I mean, something like that. And then I went into high school. I wasn't a sporty guy at all. I loved getting up into the library on Wednesday afternoons when the Four Stone Sevens were playing rugged Australian league. And then, all of the teachers that nurtured us through these plays they got married or went off. They were all female. They were all fantastic nurturers of people who wanted to do plays. And so we decided when they got transferred or got married or had children or whatever happened to them, we would run the school drama club in our senior years ourselves. And then that went into a varsity period when I was at university. There was a lot of activity on campus, theatrical activity. And then I got seen by a director from a newly formed professional state theatre company. And I did my final exam for an arts degree on a Friday. And on the Monday morning, I was on a wage on a 3-year contract. And so it just sort of unfurled at a really glorious rate for me. And I said then and there, I hope I'm still putting actor on my tax form when I'm 70.
Mm-hmm. Steve, I grew up in a theater family. My father produced regional theater, mostly classical Shakespeare festivals in Ohio. I lived in about 8 different places because it was very much a gypsy wagon kind of family, moving all over the place with the vicissitudes of his career. I didn't want to be an actor. I was in lots and lots of his plays. I was in 20 Shakespeare plays before I was 20 years old, never in anything approaching a big role. But I was much more interested in being an artist. I was quite a committed painter and printmaker. But I went away to college and fell in with the theater gang. By osmosis, I'd become a much more experienced actor than anybody else. I was instantly a campus star. And it was like, oh, okay, I'll go with the flow. The handwriting is on the wall. I've always said, if you hear enough laughter and applause at a young age, you're going to end up an actor, whether you want to be or not. So that's
I would love to have seen your moth in Love's Labour's Lost. Did you do moth?
I didn't play moth, but I did play mustard seed.
That's a killer of a role.
In fact, I did it in 2 different productions. I played all the 1-syllable roles: pinch, froth.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
I finally moved up to Guildenstern and Hortensio. 4 syllables each. So
jumping into why I get to talk to you guys, the rule of Jenny Penn. I'm sure both of you see a lot of scripts, read a lot of scripts. What was it about this one that said, oh, yes, I need to make this?
Page 3, the scene on page 3 just grabbed me. That rarely happens. And it was because already the detail of how the first scene should play out was forensically detailed with brilliant evocative descriptions of performance and activity and dialogue. And that just kept happening. And then on page 10, there'd be another master moment. And the film just kept layering itself deeper and deeper and deeper.
Geoffrey was persuaded immediately. I was scared to death of the script. It scared me so much. It seemed so extreme. And it was only when I got on a Zoom with James Ashcroft, the co-writer and filmmaker, he completely sold me on it. He spoke so beautifully about it, and he just convinced me of his serious intent. That he had clearly a great intelligence and a very compassionate heart. And he'd created this monstrous character of Dave Crealy. He talked about how it's a play about cruelty and bullying, and there haven't been enough films that have really dealt in depth with those issues. And as soon as I heard him talk about that, I saw the script in a very, very different way, and the character of Dave very differently. And of course, as soon as Geoffrey was involved, I just saw this was going to be a wonderful mano a mano experience with a character actor like me. Just
the reason I wanted to watch it was the two of you, and you both do not disappoint. You guys are fantastic together, going against one another. Geoffrey, I'm curious, what do you? Everyone at the rest home, has sort of given up on fighting Dave. What do you think it is about the judge and the character of the judge, where he wants to fight back and is unwilling to back down?
Yeah, that's a very quintessential thought. I often describe that great ensemble of, septuagenarian, octogenarian, nonagenarian New Zealand actors that we worked with, because that my first question to James Ashcroft was, how are you going to cast this? Because you are going to have to honor and validate the truth of life in an aged care facility on a very compassionate and humane level. He said, I'm going to invite all my mentors. When I started drama school, all the actors, the older actors I worked with when he was 20. And that's who we had. And they were such a bunch. They were fantastic. There were levels of eccentricity. There was one great actress there called Jeanette MacDonald. And I went, not the Jeanette MacDonald. She said, no, a Jeanette MacDonald. They were great anecdotalists. We'd all get together for cocktails at the end of the tougher days. It's from a generation where being a theatre actor back in the middle of the last century or later, there was a spirit to theatrical camaraderie that had a certain frisson to it. I don't know. It was great to be around that again.
And there was James who really took the setting and the atmosphere, that world, very seriously. It's very interesting about James. His wife, in fact, is the chairman CEO of a chain of senior care facilities in New Zealand, very fine institutions. She's second generation. Her mother and father created this company. And James really knows that world and really wanted to treat it with great kindness and dignity. Everything about it, about his presentation, is completely accurate to what he knows about those worlds, and including the consultants who worked with us, the physical therapists who deal with Judge Mortensen's character are actual physical therapists. He wanted to create this world and present it, even though it's the background to a kind of horrific story, an indisputably horrific story. He wanted it to be a story of compassion. And he's a compassionate man with a good heart and a kind of wild sense of humor. And just, it was marvelous the way he really knew how to direct a film. He's fairly new to filmmaking, and yet he's already a young master.
Yeah, no, I thought he did a great job.
That, I can continue for you, Steve, just on the thing of the Greek chorus idea, is that I sort of knew that John's character is such an effusive powerhouse of malevolence and the duality of deceiving people is very skillful. So some people have just got used to him being a sort of slightly brain-dead person, as it were. But in fact, there's a very fast, vengeful mind ticking over. And that Mortensen, as a judge, as a man of law, and as a man powerful in society and who believes that's the law is what is holding the place together, I think he reaches a point of doubt in himself because he's neurologically deteriorating, and it's a question of whether he will be able. But I think he has a moral compass and a sense of ethics that he knows this guy needs to be eliminated. And it's a quest, if you think of it in classical heroic terms of drama. That's kind of the landscape that we're seeing afresh through the metaphor of life in an aged care facility, as it were.
I'm almost out of time. John, I do have to ask you an individual question, and I'm sure many have asked the exact same thing I'm going to ask you. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and I know that you're going to be playing Dumbledore. I have to wonder, I'm assuming you're going to do like an English accent? Like, are you already starting to think about how you're going to play the role?
Not a lot, but he's certainly an Englishman. In fact, there's a good deal of controversy that an American has been hired to play him. He's such an icon.
Yeah.
But
even us from the colonies down south, we never got a look in. No one was allowed in.
I'm half English. I've just played Roald Dahl. I played Winston Churchill. I went to school in London years ago. I'll spend some time with a dialect coach. Don't worry about that. But no, I mean, Dumbledore couldn't possibly be anything other than English. I just have to do my best. The wonderful thing is, I was welcomed by every English actor I worked with on The Crown. They had far more confidence in me and my Englishness than I did myself. So
I actually love the idea of you playing the role, and anyone who says otherwise is a F them. But I am curious though. I know this is like a really big project for Max and HBO. Is it sort of, were you excited to sign on to something that you could be playing for the next 7 to 10 years? Is it something that's like a little daunting? Like what goes through your head when you're signing on to, honestly, a pretty iconic role like this?
It's pretty scary, but it's certainly not anything I would dream of saying no to. Look, I'm about to turn 80. Next year, I'll be 80. I'll be 86 or 7 at the wrap party for this one. It's a wonderful winding down role. That's how I see it. I know that I'll be working with at the very top of the food chain. These are superb people. And I will be working with among the best English-speaking actors in the world. I mean, the New York, the talent pool right there in London is at their disposal. I'm really excited about it, and just revisiting Harry Potter in depth these days. I just want to do it justice.
Last thing for you, if you don't mind, do you know when you start filming? Is it this summer? Have they told you?
I do Giant, the Roald Dahl play, right up until August 2nd. I'm available to work on August 4th. So I go right out of the frying pan and into the fire. I'll be doing makeup and hair tests for the last couple of weeks that I perform Roald Dahl on in the West End.
Jumping back into why I get to talk to the two of you, I feel like Jenny Penn is a great advertisement for making sure you have kids so they can watch over you in a rest home. True or false?
That's a pretty good. Neither of us.
I think it's a good premise to state that.
That's true. Neither of us just have each other. So.
Where we were aware in New Zealand that the indigenous Maori community are very thoughtful about their seniors, their elders. They're respected in a great way. And I don't know if in many other cultures, I think it's true of what I know of Japan. That's also another culture that it's hardwired into family structure. And it is important because, when I was a teenager, when I was 14, I had a great grandmother who was still alive, and she was 93. And I thought that's really ancient. There were no others. But since then, you see, for good genes or good diet or whatever, good luck, people a greater majority of people are seeing themselves into their last decade of the centenary years,
Some of the kindest characters in the film are the caregivers in the senior care facility, and a lot of them are Maoris, New Zealand Maoris. These just lovely people. Not to mention George Henry, our Geoffrey's roommate in the film, who is one of the great New Zealand actors.
And the islander culture that's around the film, in the caretakers. I was lucky enough, before we started shooting, I was there early to come to terms with my wheelchair techniques. I just had to more or less get a good driving license and a good skill set up for fast speeds, fast turns. The French Connection part of the movie, I called it, the second half. And I got to go to the Pacific Arts Festival, which celebrates islander culture across the Pacific and New Zealand. And it was one of the most thrilling awards nights, because people would be danced up onto the stage, the winners of different awards. They were just elevated by music and ritual. And, and people spoke of their 5,000-year-old heritage. And, Australia is only just to the left. When I was at school, we knew almost zero about an ancient culture that's as old as Egypt, and they have mapped their knowledge of their oceanic knowledge and geographic discoveries are phenomenal. I mean, they, long before we read Heyerdahl, there was so much going on there on great complexities of anthropology and sociological thinking,
I was going to say that this is probably my last question, because I'm probably out of time. But I am a really big fan, like I said, of both of you. And I'm fascinated by how actors get ready for that first day of filming. So for a project like Jenny Penn, like in the weeks leading up or the months leading up to that first day of filming, what are you actually doing to mentally get ready, to break down the script, whatever you're doing, so when you step on set that first day, you feel very confident in what you're going to deliver to the director?
We had a wonderful luxury. Geoffrey, who lives in Melbourne, the other side of the world, he traveled to Wellington by way of Los Angeles. In other words, he circumnavigated. And when he was in LA, the two of us, it was his idea. We just sat for 2 days and worked on the script. We read it through together with my assistant reading all the stage directions and everybody else's roles, just to have our first bite of the script before we actually got there and started working in earnest. And James was in on it. He wasn't watching on Zoom, but we would report to him and give him our responses to our own experience. And Geoffrey and I knew each other from before we had worked together before. We were friends, and we're both equally excited about working on these. We'd both given a lot of thoughts to the two characters, but we had a first go at it. Meantime, I was doing my teeth, I was doing my eyes, I was already anticipating my dialect coach. I believe I spent some time on Zoom with her, even though I hadn't arrived at the Antipodes yet. But, there's a lot of thought and a lot of work goes into it, just so that you're ahead of the game by the time you're actually there. Geoffrey?
I have to embed in, it's not a massively dialogue-driven script, but there are some sections that are complicated because of the neurological decay. There are blips. So I had to get my head around. I'm sitting in a corridor, but when I turn my head, I'm now in the room with the therapist. Well, I thought I was, you know what I mean? So I wanted to understand the orchestration of the storytelling in as much detail as possible. And John did tell me, I mean, he said when he was doing Third Drop from the Sun, he said, I got very good at learning fast dialogue quickly. He had to. And I know, we've both done Lear recently, and I spent months in learning preparation for that because I wanted. Now, Lear's not the biggest role in the world, you know what I mean? It's 900 lines, I think. But you've got to be on top of that. And I was doing that while I was shooting Pirates 5. So I'd be walking the Gold Coast beach doing blow winds and crack your cheeks.
Yeah, I did get very fast at learning lines during Third Rock days when speed was of the essence, but that's gone. It takes a long time now. I have a great long speech toward the end of the film. I don't think a spoiler alert is required, but I do talk for a long time. I started learning that during that pre-shoot period, and it was a wonderful thing to have. Just even though it was a good 5 weeks before I had to shoot that scene, it was great to have something that I just knew solid and I could just drill it constantly. And it was my way of getting to know Dave Crealy.
I have to stop there because you've indulged me for far too long. I'm just going to say again, really congrats on the film. I thought you guys were both so great in it, and I really appreciate you giving me so much time, and I wish you guys nothing but the best.
Steve, thank you so much.
You're our last interview of the day, and you were wonderful.